morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. I'm the Gray Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Saturday, December 30th, 2023. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First card we are starting our day off with today is, we love to see this card to begin our day today. We've got here our 10 of Pentacles. Things are going to start to move a bit smoother. You just need to be a little bit patient right now. Masculine, feminine energy, and divine union. You may be feeling that energy of something about to start back up again. This is kind of that engine coming back to life, as it were. So for the energy right now in divine union, there's going to be a lot of focus on productivity today, focusing on what needs to get done, focusing on a lot of the practical areas. As I mentioned, there's been a lot of practicality coming in during this retrograde period. For masculine and feminine energy, this is also feeling some of that wave of energy as it relates to the supportive energy that is around you at this time. So for the energy in divine union, this is almost that amplification and that reminder as to why you are going forward in this way or space prior to the beginning of the Mercury retrograde starting. As you may recall, masculine energy was putting a lot of focus and care and attention in terms of healing any unhealed karmic energy that was around the divine unions. Specifically, this is going to deal with family, friends, situations, unhealed karmic energy from the past, potentially coming into the surface today. There was an intentionality that was brought forth that the masculine was trying to heal in this way. Feminine, we noticed, was almost at a state or space of more caution as it relates to doing this prior to the retrograde beginning. And we saw some of the reasons why the feminine had that state or space of caution, because what we were basically identifying is feminine was almost recognizing or pre-anticipating some of the anxiety that may have been stirred up by having to do this type of work, because it isn't necessarily easy. If these unhealed karmic situations were able to unheal themselves, they certainly would have. But we are seeing here that there's something that is happening right now as it relates to seeing that some of the results of that effort is coming to the surface right now. And that's coming through amplified productivity, amplified ability to see that energy in terms of feeling that level or degree of support, not only from the divine union itself, but from the energy around the divine union. Now, masculine and feminine that are moving into divine union right now, this is that concentration and orientation towards situations and circumstances that feel like they're creating levels or degrees of productivity, feeling that supportive energy around you and keeping your focus on them at this time. For the energy moving into divine union right now, this has been feeling like a lot more of an intentional path that needs to be reached right now, specifically due to the fact that some of these energies that have been coming into divine union during this time have been doing so with a lot of pressure on the formation of the divine union. We saw that first, a lot of that felt like energy that may not necessarily have been on board for the divine union occurring. And we saw that once that gauntlet was effectively reached, there then had to come through in terms of things that were coming from a positive space, but having to analyze and ask oneself if anything that was coming forward right now in a capacity or degree to heal was actually coming in that way, shape, or form for the benefit of the divine union, or if there was something that was very important about the timing. Remembering that for a lot of the energy coming into divine union right now, there had to be a moment of patience that was required, potentially something that was being brought forth, all for the best reasons, all for the best intentions, but also recognizing that divine unions require a lot of concentration in terms of prioritization of time, effort, and energy. We see that for the energy that's continuing to move in that divine union frequency, that level or degree of being able to amplify and utilize the Mercury retrograde for the benefit of the divine union, almost effectively saying, if this is coming from a space of positivity, there isn't necessarily a timeline on something that is good coming towards you in a good space, is amplifying what the good is right now that is allowing you to maintain that direction towards staying and maintaining the frequency of the divine union. masculine and feminine energy in separation right now. This is also that point of productivity that we're seeing. For both energies right now, this may not necessarily be a lot of intentionality right now coming into union, but a lot of focus right now on any of the energy that you feel is amplifying that sense of stability around you at this time. This could be friends, family, supportive networks, supportive systems, things that allow that level or degree of productivity that are helping you right now almost recharge your battery battery, as it were, as you continue forward in this moment of separation. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now, second card in our 5-card spread for today is, why are we doing this? Because we see this is the amplification that we are feeling right now in this retrograde period. Are things moving in a productive way, or are things navigating situations or circumstances or collapse? We see that perspective right now is very, very key. Specifically because, as you may have identified and as we recognize, there was that moment that the retrograde brings forth that almost feels like the space between breaths, having to take that inhale and then hold your breath, if you will, in terms of navigating the exhale. So for masculine and feminine energy in divine union at this time, there is a moment of feeling like you have to operate in two different modalities in terms of seeing and feeling that sense of building a point of productivity, working and amplifying what feels like it is productive at this moment, versus avoiding anything that may be feeling or creating a sense of anxiety or crisis within you at this time. Now, for the energy right now that is in the divine union frequency, what we are effectively identifying at this time is that moment that feels like a bit like you're moving in two different directions, because while there's a lot of things right now that you are seeing are working in a very positive direction, you are also, again, anticipating and working through situations and circumstances that require this level or degree of support, require this level or degree of healing. We see that for a lot of the energy right now in divine union, this is a path that you effectively set yourself on. You put yourself in this space, place, or direction to navigate these effectively. This was like moving yourself into places you knew were going to be difficult at this time, but specifically due to the fact that you felt like you had the supportive system around you to effectively look at these scenarios and ask oneself, can they be remediated? Can they be helped? Is there something here that can be fixed? Or are you navigating situations or circumstances that are effectively where you left them or where you found them, which is giving you some identification or understanding of the full clarity of some situations and circumstances right now. And the problem around some of this right now for the energy in the divine union frequency is due to the fact that there was this point of consideration and recognizing that you knew that some of this may have been anticipated. You may have recognized that some of this was going to be something that you were going to put in front of yourself as almost some challenging space or some challenging homework, but specifically due to the fact that being in the divine union frequency gives you that level or degree of support to be able to address these circumstances and situations once and for all, to be able to assess if they can come into easement or if they just need to be avoided as you continue forward in this direction. Masculine and feminine energy coming into the divine union frequency, we see that you are also doing this work, but the problem for the energy right now coming into the divine union frequency is this is going to feel more like turbulence that's happening as you navigate and move forward in union, specifically because this isn't path work that you set yourself up for. It's something that you are encountering in the process of trying to create a space or place of the divine union forming. And a lot of this does feel like a bit of that crisis energy in terms of having to assess, almost having to get very, very specific as looking at situations and circumstances to ascertain and understand whether you feel like they are something that is going to benefit the divine union, or if they are a threat to what you are creating for yourself at this time. One of the things that we see here, and in this way the Mercury retrograde has been very helpful, has been the identification of putting that level or degree of time on situations and circumstances, recognizing that the good does not have a timer on it. It's going to effectively stay good interminably, which is why we see that for a lot of the energy coming into the divine union frequency right now, that ability to recognize and ascertain, even if something is coming from a positive place, to be able to say, if this is something that is positive and one's own priority needs to be focused on divine union, then that isn't necessarily something that is going to go away, given the fact that that is the amplification of something coming from a state or space of goodwill, as opposed to something that feels like it is on someone else's timeline. However, again, this is also potentially leading to a lot of energy falling back into separation, because as we identified, this isn't necessarily circumstances or situations wherein something is coming from a negative perspective. It has to do with priority. It has to do with where someone is putting one's priority at this time. For a lot of energy, this could be leading to energy falling back into separation right now, specifically because for an energy in partnership right now, if that focus isn't on the divine union, but rather on situations and circumstances outside of the union specifically, that could be a moment that someone feels like one's own priority isn't focused on being in divine union, but more on the outside obligations around situations and circumstances that could be leading to some sort of unraveling as it relates to energy that is trying to stay in the divine union frequency at this time. Masculine and feminine right now that are in separation, this work right now, we see that you are effectively reflecting each other in separation. So for a lot of the energy right now in separation, this is a moment that we're potentially seeing that is really focusing on a lot of practical care and consideration to situations and circumstances that are building that sense of stability for yourself at this moment. We even see that a lot of energy right now in separation is putting a lot of care and attention in terms of the healed karmic energy that is around them at this time. This is going to be friends, family, community, that support system, specifically because there is a feeling of some kind of crisis that is being navigated right at this time. Again, we see why right now, specifically for feminine energy, because we were identifying that for a lot of the feminine energy right now, this return to the practical space has to do with the anxiety of masculine not maintaining a priority towards being in divine union. We were almost describing it almost as a bit of the feminine energy feeling anxiety that masculine energy's own sense of attention is too easily drawn away from maintaining the consistency necessary in terms of staying in divine union. This is why we see that feminine energy to a certain extent is leaving themselves open to things and situations and circumstances at this time, but only things that feel like they are coming from a positive, practical place, things that are grounding the feminine energy. Masculine in separation as well is going through this same experience right now. The problem that we are effectively seeing right now for the masculine energy in separation is this is navigating a sense of internal crisis that may have been experienced due to the fact that you are on your own healing journey at this time. And it is almost feeling like a point of recalibration. Masculine energy, we also see right now that you are putting a lot of care, effort, and energy in what feels like it is positive, what feels like it is supportive, what feels like it is productive, versus removing anything that you feel may have been accidentally or inadvertently causing these points of crisis in your own experience. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now, third card in our 5-card spread for today is... what are we talking about here? We've got here our 2 of Cups in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy in divine union. One of the challenges or hurdles that we're potentially seeing right now has to do with even in divine union, there has been some moments right now that have been causing some feelings of anxiety or fear of separation. We see that this is coming into play. Why are we experiencing this right now? Because you may remember and recall that prior to us taking our pause point, we saw that masculine energy was going through moments or modalities right now in feeling that lack of confidence for the self. Feminine was doing their best not to amplify that same feeling. However, seeing masculine energy in that modality did create a state or space of feminine similarly feeling that sense of anxiety, but not necessarily wanting to reflect it back to the masculine. What we are effectively identifying at this moment is for both energies having to deal with some circumstances or situations, that pause between breath. The retrograde is starting to have a bit of that impact. And it's very important right now for the energy, even if in the divine union frequency, to focus on what feels like it is productive, what feels like it is supportive, rather than putting too much time, effort, energy, and attention in navigating anything that feels like it is in the opposite direction. There's a point right now that we see that for the masculine and feminine, there was an intentionality in moving forward in this level and degree right now. But we're also seeing that there's a moment that some of these circumstances and situations are now coming to bear in a way that is creating some sense of anxiety or urgency or that feeling of potential crisis. For masculine and feminine energy right now, in divine union, the most important message to remember is to be able to focus on what feels like it is productive. Focus on what feels like it is supportive, making sure that you keep that point of orientation on one another, instead of allowing situations or that feeling of anxiety to creep in and interfere with the energy of the frequency of being in union. Now, masculine and feminine energy that are coming into divine union, we see here that there's potentially a lot of energy that is falling back into separation at this time over these situations and circumstances. This is more of a continuation on some of the circumstances that we were identifying prior to our pause, wherein we saw something being brought forth to masculine and feminine in divine union, or trying to come into divine union right now. Things that feel like they're potentially harmless, but are actually creating rifts in the energy of union. Being able to identify, again, that sense or state of something being harmless, only being harmless in that it doesn't affect the union, is the difference right now that is creating a space or place that is showing whether energy is going to continue forward in the divine union frequency or whether they are falling back into separation. And we saw here that some of this is almost requiring a level or degree of compromise, specifically because we saw that for some of the energy, one of the reasons that we see that there is a conflict point happening right now that is potentially causing separation points is someone looking at something in partnership right now and seeing it as harmless, while the other energy has a very different opinion of such. Being able to come into a point of compromise and recognizing that if something is harmful, it is harmful if one energy in the divine union identifies it as such, rather than the intentionality of something, is creating rifts right now, because it's almost creating a moment of articulation between energies to be able to find that midpoint, to be able to find that point of compromise. This is the energy coming into divine union right now, learning that ability not to think unilaterally, but more to think about what is in the best interest of the partnership, as opposed to one's own sense of self-opinion or interest. For some energy right now, this is potentially going to feel like a bridge too far that leads back into separation. Feminine energy right now, this is why we see that feminine energy is moving right now in a modality where there isn't a lot of concentration right now on trying to come into union if you are in separation. Because feminine energy right now, a lot of the feminine energy potentially fell back into separation, specifically around feelings of circumstances or situations where masculine was potentially led astray or pulled away from partnership from something that they are effectively ascribing or still insisting was harmless, even as feminine can feel that point of separation occurring. This is why we see that the feminine, to a certain extent right now, even in separation, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, is feeling very distant from the masculine energy, specifically because feminine is feeling that sense or anxiety or frustration of a masculine energy that cannot prioritize the needs of partnership, that ability to compromise versus all of the demands or all of the possibilities that are around them at every opportunity. This is something that the feminine energy recognizes that they cannot teach a masculine energy, rather that the masculine energy that is approaching them needs to have that point of determination as it relates to being able to stay in the divine union frequency, which is why we see that for a lot of the feminine energy right now, there's simply just not that care or attention right now being focused and coming into partnership, so much as navigating any sense of crisis by reorienting or calling back their energy to the spaces or places that feel like they truly see and support the feminine at this time. Masculine energy in separation, you're effectively reflecting the same thing that we're seeing right now on the part of the feminine. The problem for the masculine energy right now is a point of potentially identifying that this is a problem that may have led to points of crisis or separation points in the past. It's that point of recognizing right now, that point of masculine, identifying that there are situations and circumstances from the past that you may have thought were harmless, that you may have thought were not necessarily problematic, but now you're almost feeling the weight of being in separation that is almost amplifying that sense of harmlessness. Something that you were trying to amplify was harmless has in fact led to a separation point. And we see here that there may be potentially a moment right now for a lot of the masculine energy in separation wherein you're trying to potentially heal a rift. You're trying to potentially heal a rift in the feminine by amplifying and trying to articulate to the feminine that you have understood and you recognize this lesson. The problem that we're seeing for a lot of the masculine energy in separation right now is the feminine energy at this time is potentially feeling very closed off to receiving that message. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Fourth card in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here a bit of saving grace because we've got here our 6 of Cups in its reversal. So I have to stress right now something that's very important to keep in mind, especially for the energy in separation. Feminine energy right now is not in a modality wherein they're pushing away all energy. It's not like they're looking at all energy right now and they're ascertaining and deciding that something cannot come towards them. Feminine energy is looking for the healed karmic connections only right now. And I need to stress that feminine energy in separation is not in a modality wherein they are focusing on trying to heal energy that is in separation. Feminine energy is looking and ascertaining to see whether anything is in separation is at a point of healing. And feminine's almost effectively telling themselves, if in separation right now, that energy that is coming towards them in a state or space of being healed will be able to show that level or degree of care and support. And this is why we see that this is almost a return to austerity for a lot of feminine energy and separation at this time, because this is almost feminine energy right now, seeing the masculine with all sorts of opportunities around them, all sorts of possibilities, potentially even recognizing or feeling like there's a lot of masculine energy that is trying to come towards the feminine at this time. But feminine energy isn't necessarily seeing that level or degree of consistency that they would desire or aspire to, that they recognize is important for divine union. So how is the feminine energy in separation identifying and articulating what feels like it is coming towards them from a positive karmic space? Not necessarily opportunities, not looking at energy that's offering spaces or places or directionality, but energy that's looking to emotionally connect with the feminine. And again, that return to the sense or space of the difference between giving space and holding space. The difference between giving space and holding space is the very, very fine point that we see that a lot of the feminine energy in separation right now is utilizing to help ascertain what feels like it is coming towards them from a state of genuine care and support versus energy that may feel more easily distracted, more easily called for away from the feminine energy due to, I'm going to call this like the shiny object feature. This is almost a lot of the feminine energy in separation right now, almost like abandoning a lot of artifice, just kind of wanting to come into a state or space of truly emotionally connecting with energy to identify what feels like it is actually coming towards them with that set intention, with that positive intention, versus energy that isn't necessarily bound or caught in that space or place of wanting to actually build strong partnership. Masculine energy in separation right now, this is what we see that is also occurring right now on your own healing journey, because what we are basically identifying is this is potentially a moment where you are recognizing spaces and places in the past where your own level or degree of, again, not necessarily wanting to let others down or not necessarily wanting to let options or opportunities go to the wayside may have created spaces or places that have caused fractures in union in the past. And what we see with a lot of the masculine energy and separation that's healing at this time is this recognition point that this has almost led to a point of closure with some feminine energy that has a lot of trepidation, that has a lot of caution as it relates to building connection points. So we see that for a lot of the masculine energy and separation right now, this is going to feel like a lot of slow burn that's coming towards situations and circumstances, because there's a lot of healing that is coming in with a lot of these connections that you're building at this time. That level or degree of identifying spaces or places that you are able to amplify that degree or ability of offering care, support, emotional connection, being able even potentially to return back to situations and circumstances wherein some of this has already been built, to be able to fundamentally identify and articulate that these are lessons that you have learned that you're ready to build upon. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now. This is effectively that proofing ground that we're seeing. This is that moment right now that we're seeing doesn't necessarily have to do with the opportunities that are around the divine union, because we almost see that the divine union energy attracts a lot of this energy towards it. But rather we see that the Mercury retrograde is creating a period for energy that is trying to come into the divine union frequency right now, that is identifying what is needed right now to preserve and maintain what you are creating in divine union at this time. Because while there may be feeling like a lot of outside obligations, there is some point that is being recognized about a need to kind of like, circle the internal wagons, if you will, on the divine union at this time. There's a fragility that is still being maintained in a lot of this energy that is coming into this frequency, that is almost amplifying that anything that is truly in the best interest of the energy of divine union will be able to respect and appreciate that there's a level or degree of patience that is needed around things at this time, because the divine union energy requires it. And we see that for the energy that is able to maintain that point of sustaining the energy of staying in divine union, we see that that ability of putting something off, of saying not that this isn't a no, it is a not now, is almost amplifying what feels like it is actually supportive to the preservation of the divine union coming into fruition, versus something that may be creating an inadvertent threat to pulling it apart. Masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency right now. This is something that is feeling very difficult, because this is almost a moment that is reorienting about the fact that to be able to maintain divine union, even with the best interest of trying to heal some of those bonds outside of it, because we see that for a lot of the energy right now of the divine union, this was work that you intentionally set yourself upon. This is almost that recognition point of, again, allowing this to be a point of supporting one another, of being able to see potentially circumstances and situations that cannot be healed at this time, even with one's best intentions set forth to heal them. But having that point of recognition and feeling like one has done all that one can do is almost amplifying the strength and stability of the divine union, in recognizing that essentially that there are circumstances and situations that are even outside of the control of the divine union to heal. That is what is so difficult right now for a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency. It is that intentionality that you potentially set towards circumstances or situations, with the sense of going in together to see if something could be mollified or healed, and potentially still feeling that point of frustration, because this could be feeling like even at a moment that both of your efforts are put in that direction, you're not necessarily seeing some of that sea change as quickly or as hopefully as you might aspire. But even being able to support one another on the way of that journey is helping you navigate any of those feelings of frustration or disappointment that you may be having around those situations at this time. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Fifth card in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here, beautiful, Wheel of Fortune. So this is just a reminder that, again, A lot of this is based on time. This is the time of year that we do this type of work. This is the time of year we do this thing. And one of the things that we see here, that for masculine and feminine, that is being amplified right now, especially in the divine union frequency, is almost a moment, and this is what we like about this. This is not a moment of masculine and feminine energy abandoning hope as it relates to any of this good work that they've been trying to put forward. This isn't a moment that we see that masculine and feminine are looking at circumstances and situations where they may have been trying to heal rifts, and they may not necessarily be seeing those rifts healing as effectively or quickly as they may ascribe or desire to. But what we really appreciate at this moment right now is almost a point of orientation in identifying that there's something here that masculine and feminine in divine union are saying to themselves that is almost amplifying and saying, giving something time. This is almost masculine and feminine energy putting their care and attention towards the hope, because you will recall that for a lot of the energy in divine union, moving forward in this fashion, moving forward with this intentionality was a point of reaffirming to oneself that you were not doing it specifically to get a reaction. You weren't doing it with a sense of like determinative action and feeling like what you were doing was going to yield a result. There was almost an expectation to a certain extent that moving forward in this way to try to heal anything unhealed, to try to come into that point of healing, might not be the kind of work that can happen with a simple action or a single gesture. This is almost like giving the equivalent of reminding one another that you can't walk up to like a blaze and throw like a thimbleful of care on something and expect everything to be okay. This is almost masculine and feminine identifying and articulating that sense of support to one another and saying, this is not something that we did to elicit reaction. This is something that we do because this is what we ought to do. This is how we move. This is how we occupy our space. And there's a nature and identifying that the divine union frequency itself is one that perpetually will continue forward in this way, because it's not about responding or reacting if what you're giving forward in a positive way isn't coming back the way you aspire to. It's almost that determination in recognizing that this is not something that is going to elicit or generate a reactivity point in you, because you're not moving from a state or space of reactivity. You're moving from a state and space of intentionality and genuineness and care. Masculine and feminine energy that is coming into the divine union frequency. What we are effectively seeing at this time is, again, a moment that is amplifying what feels like it's actually supportive of the divine union versus what feels like it is not in the best interest of the divine union. What did we say is helping to articulate what that is? Time. We see here that for the energy right now that is moving into the divine union frequency, it is that point of optics in recognizing right now that difference between something that is coming forward right now, opportunities or situations that you may be accidentally or inadvertently fracturing coming into or maintaining the divine union frequency. Recognizing that any energy that you effectively articulate that is the case and requiring time is going to be able to amplify whether something is in the best interest of the divine union or not. Because again, the good does not have a clock on it. The good does not have a timeline. The good is a gesture that is being able to be brought forth. And so anything that is good is going to be able to be patient and work on the timeline of the divine union frequency. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now and maintaining that frequency are recognizing that, which is why there is a sense of patience. It doesn't feel like it is compromised so much as a moment of recognizing that there's a point of patience that is being reached right now to make sure that both energies are in alignment with how to move forward. And that is something that doesn't need to be rushed, because the divine union is the destination. It's not something that you need to achieve. It's something that you need to maintain. Now, masculine and feminine that are falling back into separation at this time, this is effectively why we see a lot of this energy is falling back into separation, because as we've identified, the frequency of divine union requires consistency. It requires stability. for some of the energy right now, that a moment of seeing that something is coming into fruition, and it's going to feel very frustrating for energy that is falling out of divine union at this time, because there's a moment right now that feels like there is something that is, again, almost coming through in terms of a point and space of harmlessness. A lot of things that are kind of calling your attention away from the divine union at this time. But it's almost this moment of identifying that everything has a specific time that it is ready to be navigated. And if the energy can't come into that level or degree of having patience with one another, being able to recognize that you are the one setting that timeline, and whatever is in the best interest of the divine union will be patient in that capacity. If there's something that is demanding the attention now to pull the energy apart, masculine or feminine, seeing this right now because it's happening on both sides of this energy, then this is that amplification of energy that feels like it can't maintain the consistency required to hold the divine union frequency in the wake of all of the energy that potentially is generated around the divine union frequency. That this is that moment that is almost amplifying whether these energies can maintain and hold that note versus falling back apart due to the obligations that, though they may seem harmless, may be feeling like they are pulling you back out of partnership. So for masculine and feminine at this time, that level or degree of recognizing what feels like it is in the best interest versus what is not is effectively now identifying whether these energies are staying in union or falling back into separation. Now, for the energy falling back into separation over this right now, this is why we see that so much of this energy in separation right now is relying or falling back upon healthy karmic energy as it relates to friends, family, supportive systems. Masculine and feminine almost reflecting each other in this way in separation, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Feminine, if this is a feminine that is effectively just saw a masculine that was pulled away from outside forces, positive things that the feminine was potentially asking the masculine to wait upon, but the masculine would not operate on the feminine's timeline. This is why we see that the feminine energy is potentially so closed off right now towards the masculine, because this is feminine energy that is feeling the weight or frustration of having recognized or identified or felt like they were moving into that frequency only to feel like they were pulled back out of it, which is almost creating a sense of frustration for the feminine energy, which is why we see that the feminine energy is almost like dropping all artifice right now and just focusing on what feels like it is creating good, what feels like it is sustainable right now. And feminine is effectively looking towards energy that is able to emotionally connect with the feminine and offer that same level or degree of care and support at this time. Masculine in separation right now, one of the things that may be creating more of a challenging space for you at this time is due to the fact that there may be some identification points that you are potentially recognizing wherein this happened in the past. There could even be a lot of moments that we are seeing right now as it relates to optics in terms of identifying and recognizing that we are seeing that masculine in this modality right now, this is a moment that you yourself are trying to build connection points with feminine energy that you find is in this closed off space, but also recognizing and identifying that for a lot of the masculine energy in this modality right now, this is a point that we are seeing that is hard because you are seeing that there's something that feels like it's difficult to get through here. It's difficult to break through because we almost see that masculine, you're seeing feminine energy that is so closed off at this time that it's almost like you have to almost slowly work back to showing that point of trust, that this trust that you need to build with the feminine at this time is something that is only being able to be built through time, which is why we see that a lot of the masculine energy and separation right now is working on building this sense or ability of holding space with the feminine, as opposed to making space. Because the making space would effectively be you kind of doing the things that you want to do, them doing the things that you want to do. But we see that to a certain extent, that aspect, that ability may have led to the fracturing of a lot of connections in the past. And we see that point of understanding right now is helping you cultivate the difference between making space and holding space. Making space and holding space. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our 10 of Pentacles in combination with our Tower. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our 5 of Swords in its reversal. Now, masculine and feminine energy right now in divine union and partnership. One of the problems and hurdles that we are seeing that is happening right now, even in the energy that is in divine union, is this moment of ascertaining there was an intentionality here. I